Hi everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm Alma de la Melena Cox, and this week I created this cute sketch of my favorite character in the garden with her cute little dog. And here what I want to show you is that I'm just using standard brushes that came with Procreate right now. This one's the HB pencil under sketching, and in the properties you can increase and decrease the size of your brush, and what I love about this brush is that it really has a wonderful texture. I recommend duplicating whatever brush you want to adjust so that way you keep your standard settings on the original brush that Procreate came with. So I duplicated the brush and I increased its size, and now you can see that I'm using it to fill in the shapes of the background. And the reason why, and I'll move a little bit faster here in just a moment, but the reason I have each of these shapes on their own separate layer is because I want to then, once I'm done with all of the shapes, adjust their texture even more independent of one another. So now to add texture to each of the shapes, what I want to do is add an alpha lock to each of the layers. So the reason I do that is so that my texture is contained within that shape. So I'm still using the same HB pencil from sketching, and I'm selecting first a lighter color. And here you can see I'm adjusting the opacity and also the size of the brush. And this is sort of it just takes a little bit of practice and getting used to. Sometimes my hand is a little heavy when I apply texture, so it takes just a few tries to get it right. And so now you can see that I'm using a little bit darker color, and that just seemed a little intense. So I'm dropping the opacity even more. And I'm just using a light touch with my hand as I blend both of these textures, the lighter and the darker, together. And you can just sort of see that the idea here is for the light of the rainbow to be reflecting a little bit on the tops of those hills. And now I'm just doing the same thing with the other layers, adding a little bit lighter version of the color that each of the shapes are, and then a little bit darker as well. And I will be refining this even more later on, but I like to add texture as I go along so that I can sort of see how the artwork is taking shape overall. And it's a way too for me to monitor the contrast, and especially when I bring the character and the dog in, I want to make sure that they stand out against the background. And now I'm turning off all the layers of the background so that I can work on the character. And for my character, I like to use textures for contrast. And so for the color of her skin, I'm actually using the Studio pen, which is under inking. And it's a very fluid, very opaque brush. And the reason I like to use that on the skin is I don't prefer as much texture on the skin. I like to apply it just a little bit afterwards, like I'm doing right now, just a little bit of the darker, and I'll do the same thing around her face. And I am using the same HB pencil for the texture, but I just like the skin to be really smooth, which is why I use the Studio pen. I also like to keep the neck on its own layer so that way I can adjust any shading there that's needed. And there's usually a little bit of shade just under the hairline, and so that's just something that I like to add, and a lot of illustrators do this, and it's just a way to add a little bit of dimension to a character's face. Now I'm back using the HB pencil, and you can see too that I really enjoy having a little bit of the background showing through. So it's intentional when I leave things a little bit less opaque, like in the hair you'll see a little bit of white coming through. That is intentional. I like the look of it. Now I'm using a new brush to me. I purchased this from Roche Woodworth. She's with Roche Woodworth Illustration on Instagram, and I'll pop her name here on the screen so that you can take this down. I love her brushes. This is the marker. It's called the basic marker, and it has that fluidity. It really does feel like a marker that you would use in real life. The only reason I don't use it more for like her skin is that it does have a little bit of translucency, and when I want that solid color, I recommend the Studio Pen instead. But here you can see that now I'm using again the HB pencil to add some texture, and I'll be adding stripes to this shirt, which is why it's looking the way it is right now. I'll be adding a little bit more on top of it. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have about the art process on this video or any of my videos, and I sure would appreciate a thumbs up if you are enjoying any of my videos. Thank you so much for subscribing to my channel if you do. It really does help. It helps YouTube share my videos with more people when you do give them a thumbs up. So if you can just take a moment, I would really appreciate it. Thank you so much. So here you can see that I'm back to using the the HB pencil, and I like to combine it, and now I'm using the Studio Pen, the inking under inking, and I like that contrast. So it might seem like I'm using a lot of brushes, but really it's just the HB pencil, Roche Woodworth's marker, and then the Studio Pen under inking, and I believe that's it for all the brushes that I use. But I just feel like that combination of smooth and textured is just really wonderful. So hopefully you find that helpful. So here again for the flowers, I'm using the Studio Pen under inking, and will be applying the HB pencil for the texture, and you'll see that it will create a bit of a gradient on those flowers, which I really love. I'll keep quiet for the rest of the video. Enjoy the music and the rest of this time lapse. Again, thank you so much for your attention. Have a wonderful week, everyone. Happy creating.